Good morning, 8th grade. I hope that everyone had a great 3-day weekend. I hope that everyone's staying safe. We're going to start our week 10. It's day 1 of week 10. Today is what's today's date? The 26th. Yes, because yesterday was the 25th, so May 26th. We're going to start our review of some geometry topics that you guys should remember from the beginning of the year, and then we're going to include some other topics that will give you a good foundation for when you move into geometry for high school. I spoke to a few teachers at Curtis, and they gave me a few things that they thought would be helpful for you guys to review and then also understand going into 9th grade next year. So that's going to be our focus for the remainder of the year. So today we're starting off really simple. I feel like today's lessons should not take you long at all. I'll show you where to locate all of that. So your agenda has been posted here if you wanted to take a look at what you have planned for the week. And then we'll go to day 1 of week 10, May 26th. So you have your lesson here. We're going to start with reviewing volume. So we'll go through the different types of prisms and how to find those volumes. Today we're focusing on the rectangular prism, which is honestly more like a 5th grade standard when you're first introduced to it, but we're going to incorporate when you may be given the volume and how to find the other dimension, which we've done. So like I said, I feel like today's lesson should be pretty simple for most of you. There is a YouTube link located here as well for additional support, going through how to find the volume of a rectangular prism and also how to find the missing parameters given a volume. Okay, so then you have your lesson here. You can click on it. You'll see it come up. I'm going to use the bigger version just for the video. I think it's easier for you guys to see. So if you notice, our target says, I can prepare for geometry by reviewing how to find the volume of prisms, cylinders, and cones. There should also be spheres there by the use of formulas. Okay, so in your own words, just wanted you to think of how you would define volume. And volume is going to be the space inside of something. So there's a few different graphics there that really gives you a deeper understanding of what volume is, although you should already be somewhat familiar with it. This was the 8th grade reference sheet that we had been using when we were doing this topic. We are now going to be using this one moving forward. This is your high school math reference sheet. Okay, so again, we're going to be focusing on the volume of the different prisms. So you can see that most of them are there that you would need. The rectangular prism and cube are not provided on the reference sheet, so you must know them by memory. So I just want to clarify this. So this one for the cube is not located on the reference sheet because the cube is the same as a rectangular prism, but when all sides are the same, so you can use the formula s to the 3rd power. Here, this formula is given, base times height. This is on your reference sheet, but you need to remember in a rectangular prism that the base would be a rectangle, which is where this length times width times height comes from. Okay, this one is not on your reference sheet, but this one is. This one I feel like most of you guys know anyway. It's like second nature. If we ever talk about volume, I feel like this is the first formula that comes out of your mouths. So I think it's pretty easy for you guys to remember that one. All right, so I'm going to go through this pretty quickly because like I said, you guys explore this when you were in 5th grade and on. So review of rectangular prism, how to find the volume of the rectangular prism. We would simply do the length times the width times the height. The dimensions have been provided on the diagram. So we simply do 16 times 25 times 8, right? Length times width times height. We get our answer of 3,200. And then the only thing you want to remember is when you are finding volume, your units need to be raised to the 3rd power. We can also call that cubic units. Okay, so you should definitely remember to do that when solving for volume. Here's an additional example. You have the rectangular prism provided. Answers on the following slide. So length times width times height. So we have 4 times 5 times 12. 240 is that product, and our final answer would be 240 inches cubed. Okay, few more for you guys to practice on your own. Answers are on the following slide. And then this is where the geometry teacher at Curtis had said that oftentimes her ninth graders, she finds struggle when they need to manipulate the equation. So we're going to do this with volume to start, and then we'll continue moving forward from there. So here again, we're given a rectangular prism. We are given that the volume, this is told to us in the problem, is 154 cubic feet. So I'm going to put that down, because whenever you start these problems, you always want to list what you have, what you know. So we know that the volume is 154 cubic feet, okay? Then they give us this diagram. So in our diagram, which I also made one here, we are given that this would be our height, right? How tall the rectangular prism is. This would be our length, how long it is. And then this would be our width, which we clearly don't have, right? We don't know what that is, so that's what we are going to look for. So I'm going to list the parts that we know. So we know that the length is 2 feet. And then we also know that the height is 11. Okay, and we are looking for the width. Okay, so once we have everything that we are given, once we've listed that out, we're going to then plug it into the formula and solve from there. So our formula for a rectangular prism is going to be V equals length times width times height, right? And then I plug in what I have. So let's see, we were given the volume. The volume is 154. So instead of writing V, I'm going to write 154. We were given the length, which is 2. So instead of L, I'm going to write 2. We don't know what the width is, so I'll leave that as the variable. And we know the height is 11. Okay? So at this point, we could simplify on the right side by multiplying 2 times 11, which we should do. So let's rewrite this. It would be 154 equals 2 times 11 is 22. So 22 times the width. And then we just solve our equation like we normally would. So now I would divide by 22 on both sides so that I isolate the W. So these will cancel. And I would be left with the quotient of 154 divided by 22. And that answer is going to give me W equals 7. And then the only other thing you want to make sure you do is you put your units. Now, since we were only finding the width, we use singular units. We don't put that third power. That's only when we're finding volume, when that third power comes in. But if you're finding just a dimension, you use the unit as a singular unit. So our final answer would be 7 feet. Okay? So this should be familiar to you guys. Like I said, we did do this in the earlier part of the year, and I feel like rectangular prisms are the easier of the prisms. So it should seem pretty familiar, okay? Here's another example where it talks about a cake batter is poured into a pan that is a rectangular prism with an 8-inch square base. If the cake batter occupies 192 cubic inches, what will be the height of the batter? So again, we have to think about what are we given. So we're told that it's a rectangular prism. So right there, I'm already thinking, okay, length times width times height, right? We are told that it's an 8-inch square base. So that makes me think, well, what do I know about a square? A square has 4 equal sides. So if it's an 8-inch square base, then that means that the length and the width would be equal since they are square, since it's a square base. So they would both be 8. Right? The batter occupies, that means how much the pan, right, is taking up, 192 cubic inches. What is the height? So we want to know how tall is the batter. So I'm missing the height. So there's the information we're given, right? The side is 8 inches, the volume is 192, and we don't know the height. Plug it into the formula. So again, since we know it's a square base, the sides are the same. So my length would be 8, my width would be 8, and I don't know the height. My volume is 192. And then we do the same thing we just did. You would simplify. We would do 8 times 8. That gives us 64. To isolate the h, we would divide by 64 on both sides. We get a height of 3, and it would just be inches because it's a dimension, it's not a volume. So our final answer would be 3 inches. All right, that's pretty much it. Here's another example for you to try on your own. Write down the information you're given, plug it in, and solve. Okay, so once you're done going through the lesson, there's an exit ticket for you to complete today. 3 of the problems, I believe, are on just calculating volume of a prism, and then the other 3 are finding a missing dimension. So that's located right here. I'll just make sure that I am correct with what I just explained. So yeah, so here, finding the volume, finding the volume, finding the volume, and then the other 3 are find the missing length. Here it's find the missing height, and then there's a word problem again. Okay, so it says a swimming pool is filled with 960 cubic feet of water. That means that's the volume because it's taking up the space of the pool. The pool is a rectangular prism with 20 feet long and 12 feet wide. So we have our length and our width, and it's the same depth throughout, which is good to know because then we know that it's a flat surface. Find the depth of the water. So just remember that depth would be the same as height. So that's what you would be looking for. We'd be looking for the height of the pool. Okay? All right, guys, I hope this helped. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me throughout the day. And I hope all of you are doing well. Miss you.